I'm Dr. Mary Claire Haver, and my new podcast, Unpaused, is the place for bold, unfiltered conversations about what it takes for women to thrive in the second half of life. Listen to and follow Unpaused, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Today's presenting sponsor of Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad is brought to you by 24K Wellness. Not all nutritional supplements are the same. 24K Wellness makes it their mission to help you feel, perform, and live at your best naturally and sustainably. 24K Wellness delivers nutritional supplements based on more than 5 decades of experience. Premium gold standard natural ingredients with advanced formulations and rigorous quality assurance testing to create products that support energy, recovery, vitality, long-term health, and cognition for focus through stress, late nights, and questionable decisions. No promises on your picks. And right now, special for Gambling Mad listeners only, go to 24kwellness.com and use the code MAD24K for the absolute lowest prices anywhere. Once again, that's 24kwellness.com and use the code MAD24K. 24K Wellness, fuel better, live better. Tell them Norm sent you. It is possible that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell had no idea that the show was going to be in Spanish. The NFL hired Jay-Z a few years back to book halftimes, and Jay-Z certainly told Goodell that he was scheduling Bad Bunny. But it's likely the commissioner had never heard of Bad Bunny and simply, just nodded his head, in English. Norm and Chad. Norm and Chad. Welcome to Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad. I am Norm and Chad. Coming up on the program today, MAGA declares war on Bad Bunny. Jeff Bezos declares war on the Washington Post. I declare war on Fritos. Plus, our Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms. Gambling Mad, as always, brought to you by Fritos, picked fresh daily every morning off of Central California trees, delivered directly to your local retailer every afternoon. And by the refreshing taste of Fresca. Fritos and Fresca. It's a meal. Well, as we move past the first quarter of the 21st century, we're going to try something a little different this week on Gambling Mad. One of our executive producers, Rick Barriodil, tells me that we're going to start live streaming and doing a whole lot of stuff that I don't quite understand. What are we going to be doing, Rick?
We're going to be live streaming. What's great is we have a new sponsor for the show, which is 24K Wellness.
24K Wellness,
as some people might know, and exclusively on our TikTok for every time we film. We generally film during the week, and so every time we film for our 2 hours that we're filming, we're also going to be live on TikTok each time. And because 24K Wellness is sponsoring it and such, there are exclusive deals available to people over there, in addition to be able to watch the making of the show each week on TikTok in the live stream.
The cooking of the sausage, so to be. So we're going to be live on TikTok. Yep. And if you're watching the live stream on TikTok, there'll be special offers from 24K Wellness, only available for you on TikTok for a period of time. TikTok Shop. TikTok Shop,
and the store is forgoodcollection.com, which is the marketplace by which our sponsors and basically people could go and see all kinds of things. But right now we're live on 24K Wellness, which is great, and we are also live on For Good Collection, which is the e-com marketplace. It's really easy for people to go.
All right. Well, we're going to get going here because, we pay for the satellite time. I'm at a parking meter outside. And if in West Hollywood, if you are 1 minute late on a parking meter, that is a ticket like that. They are like hawks on any expired meter. So let's get going with Gambling Mad today. I am Norm and Chad, and the regular program now will commence.
Hi, this is Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst, certified financial planner, and the host of the Jill on Money podcast. With the new year upon us, there's no better time to take control of your financial life. And the Jill on Money podcast is here to help. It's your questions that make it possible for me to provide unconventional and, I hope, entertaining insights on your money and more importantly, on your life. Follow and listen to Jill on Money wherever you get your podcasts.
What do Michelangelo, Babe Ruth, and Frank Sinatra have in common? They were all-time greats in their fields who do not have to deal with hot takes and social media. Twitter, or X, or excrement, or whatever it calls itself these days, would have torn apart Michelangelo, Babe Ruth, and Frank Sinatra. Some Facebook fanatic would have noticed that Michelangelo's sculpture of David in the nude did not have him circumcised, and the Renaissance might have erupted. We actually do not allow ourselves to appreciate the greats anymore. All the hot take yackers on radio and TV and all the keyboard warriors on social media tear you down for the slightest perceived infractions. If Jesus had jaywalked and Twitter were around then, he would have been crucified without Judas's help. Everybody's an expert and we clobber anyone we can. I was thinking about this recently during the NFL playoffs. Josh Allen was being buried alive for another playoff failure, and my mind jumped to Clayton Kershaw, another postseason flop pinup boy. Josh Allen is a perennial MVP candidate, and when his Hall of Fame career is finished, he's likely going to be one of the top 20 quarterbacks who ever played. Clayton Kershaw is not only the best pitcher of his generation, but arguably the best left-handed pitcher of the last 100 years. But both of these fellas, Josh Allen and Clayton Kershaw, often serve as piñatas for the mindless mobs because they haven't shined brightly enough in the biggest sporting moments. So we bitch and moan about their shortcomings and give short shrift to their accomplishments. By the way, when it comes to these championship junctures, luck can be a huge, huge factor. Josh Allen hasn't run lucky. Clayton Kershaw hasn't run lucky. Not the same for, say, Tom Brady, who's undoubtedly an all-time great, but who has seen luck time and again play a big hand in his championship destiny. We kind of ignore the luck factor for several reasons, but it's there. Was Tom Brady 7 Super Bowl titles better than Dan Marino? Probably not. But he's got 7 more Super Bowl titles than Dan Marino. My goodness, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl and Dan Marino did not. The prosecution rests. What won't rest is the rabble, the rabid rabble-rousers on and offline these days who constantly degrade and denigrate others to make themselves feel better. The Super Bowl halftime show. Oh, first, let me just apologize. I recommended one prop bet, tails on the coin toss, but as I pointed out, it was heads. Sorry. Over the course of time, for reasons that are not easily explicable, it will be tails more than heads. Tails now leads heads at the Super Bowl 31-29. Told you for any period of time, whether it's 1,000 coin flips, 100,000 coin flips, or 1,000,000 coin flips, tails will always be a little bit better than heads. Check back with me in 50 years. Anyway, the Super Bowl halftime show, as many people eventually noticed, was not in English. I've got to say, that's an odd choice for the NFL on the most viewed television event of the year in America. Was the National Football League trying to offend a good deal of its fan base? I don't think so. But as multicultural as I am, I disagree with the decision to present halftime entertainment on America's biggest stage entirely in a foreign language. That was Spanish, by the way, for those of you who did not recognize it. Now, it is possible, and you might think I'm joking here, it is possible that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell had no idea that the show was going to be in Spanish. The NFL hired Jay-Z a few years back to book halftimes, and Jay-Z certainly told Goodell that he was scheduling Bad Bunny. But it's likely the commissioner had never heard of Bad Bunny and simply, just nodded his head, in English. I honestly believe if Roger Goodell knew Bad Bunny was going to do the whole show in Spanish, he would have vetoed it before the deal was signed. I don't think Goodell even has Spanish housekeepers. Now, I didn't much care for the show, but I wasn't bothered by it. On the other hand, countless high-profile Trumpers went out of their way to dump on the halftime show. They said they weren't going to watch it at all because it was so politically incorrect for them, and yet then they talked about it afterwards because they watched it and wanted to criticize it. One of them, in particular, one of my favorite piñatas, who posted a couple of dozen times on X, was serial plagiarist Benny Johnson, who should not have any public platform anywhere, anytime, for any outlet in any lifetime. Plagiarism, it's not a good thing. It's when you steal someone else's work and act as if it's your own. Benny Johnson's done this more than once, and he's been fired more than once for the transgression. Anyway, Johnson posted that the Bad Bunny halftime show was, quote, a humiliation ritual to debase American culture, end quote, whatever that means. In another post, Benny Johnson called the show woke, cringe, unintelligible, foreign, boring, derivative, and preachy. I'll assume these were all his own words for once. He also called Bad Bunny's show the worst entertainment performance in Super Bowl history. Benny. Okay, you're 38 years old. How many Super Bowls have you watched in those 38 years? Now, I don't think you saw or could remember any when, say, you were 1, 2, or 3 years old. Okay, so I'm guessing, maybe 30 Super Bowl halftime shows you've seen in your 38 years on planet Benny. All right, that's half of the total Super Bowls. How many did you watch before you were born? I can't imagine many, Benny. So how do you know this was the worst Super Bowl halftime ever? By the way, Benny, I would be remiss if I did not ride your sorry ass for calling Bad Bunny's show derivative. Benny, the definition of derivative is imitative of the work of another person. Dude, you literally plagiarize for a living. You copy another person's work and pass it off as your own. Are you screwing with us, Benny? Because if you are, that's actually pretty funny. So anyway, I was half asleep Sunday watching a sleep-inducing Super Bowl in the second half when this commercial comes on with a guy walking through a potato field and telling us that Lay's is going to give us the freshest potato chips ever. He says, quote, from potato to chip to your door, end quote, in 72 hours. I fell off my couch and spilled all the Fritos from my lap. From potato to chip to your door in 72 hours. Sound familiar? So at this point, you would put on a clip. Hey, I'm talking to you, Asher. At this point, you would put on a clip of me doing that. Or if you don't put on a clip, we'll just do it again right now. Okay? Potato chip to your door in 72 hours. Does it sound familiar? Gambling Matt is always brought to you by Fritos, picked fresh off of Central California trees every morning, delivered direct to your local retailer every afternoon. What the Fritos? Lay's is a kissing cousin of Fritos. Ever hear of Frito-Lay? So I've been doing unpaid ads for Fritos for 18 months out of the goodness and kindness of my heart. And this is how Frito-Lay thanks me? Copying my whole bit on Super Bowl Sunday? Do we have a legal department here at Gambling Mad? Anybody with a legal background?
We have ChatGPT. Same thing.
Okay, we have ChatGPT is the same thing. Well, we're going to have to use it, okay? Okay, I mean, how about if I start shilling for Mondelez? What is it with Frito-Lay? Okay, you stole our bit. Nobody reached out. Didn't even send us a courtesy bag of Lay's. This is an act of snack warfare. So listen up, you snack and swindlers. We have a real sponsor of the show, 24K Wellness, and those folks are teaching me that maybe those chips are not in my best interest, and I'd be better off popping a Cognition or maybe a scoop of Super Greens. Maybe, just maybe, I'm going to turn state's evidence on Fritos. I've always loved Fritos. Heck, they are on my Mount Rushmore of old-time snacks, but it doesn't appear that Fritos is loving me back. Are you all going to make this right? To quote our current White House resident, we can do this the easy way, or we could do this the hard way. You don't want to see the hard way, Frito-Lay. Gambling Matt is committed to winning this fight. Get legal on the phone. Time for this week's sports trivia question. and none of you are going to get it. It's going to seem pretty easy. Who's the only person to ever play in the NBA and the NFL? You got no chance of this one, Junior. Asher.
Michael Jordan.
You have no chance. He played in the NBA and he tried to play in MLB. Okay. I'm going to give you one hint and it still won't help you. The only person to ever play in both the NBA and the NFL, this person is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Good luck. We will have an answer later on. No Googling. No Googling reminds me of No Flipping. No Flipping was the Larry Sanders Show. And later on, we're doing the Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms. Will Larry Sanders make the cut? It's hard, only 4 spots. I worked for the Washington Post for 44 years, mostly part-time. I started there my freshman year at the University of Maryland, right after Watergate, right after the film All the President's Men made everyone want to be newspaper journalists for a hot minute. When I think of the Post back in the late 1970s, I am reminded of the sublime 1980 film Atlantic City. There is a scene in which the main character, played by Burt Lancaster, is told by a young fella that it's the first time he's ever seen the Atlantic Ocean. Staring out at the Atlantic, Lancaster's character tells him, "The Atlantic Ocean was something then. You should have seen the Atlantic Ocean in those days." Yep, the Washington Post was something then. The Washington Post is no longer something. The Washington Post as we knew it no longer exists. Delivery despot Jeff Bezos bought the Post in 2013. And some of us were dumb enough to think he might deliver the Post a savior in the newfangled, heartless media world. Not so much. I guess the line of benevolent billionaires pretty much starts and ends with Warren Buffett. Bezos could have been a benevolent billionaire helping rescue daily journalism in America. Instead, he's just Donald Trump's piss boy, bringing a chainsaw to one of the foundations of our American democratic republic. Yes, the Post masthead says democracy dies in darkness. Actually, democracy dies in the back of an Amazon van where Jeff Bezos counts his windfall from dispatching toilet paper to homes across America. Hey, Washington, you think Dan Snyder was a bad owner? Jeff Bezos says, "Hold my champagne flute." The Post has been gutted editorially and spiritually. Foreign bureaus shut down. Local coverage reduced. The sports department sold for parts. There's no there anymore. Jeff Bezos is the 5th richest person in the world, give or take a Mark Zuckerberg bowel movement. I cannot tell him how to spend his money. Good journalism is never on anyone's Christmas shopping list, but I can tell you how he does spend his money. Okay, let's go to the Jeff Bezos scorecard. Let's start with his residential holdings. It's a place where you might live. He owns 3 adjacent properties on Indian Creek Island in Miami at the cost of $237 million. He owns a Beverly Hills estate that was purchased for $165 million. And he owns the largest private home in Washington, D.C. Actually, it was 2 different homes on one block. He bought both homes, combined them into one. It's 27,000 square feet, and he bought that for $23 million. His June 2025 wedding to Lauren Sanchez cost $50 million. That's a wedding. There were 200 plus guests. It was held in Venice, Italy, and there was some good bread. He has a 417-foot super yacht, estimated retail value $500 million. And he invested $75 million in the recently released horror documentary Melania. One other number for you. The net increase in Jeff Bezos' wealth since he bought the Washington Post 12 years ago, $224 billion. That's the increase in his wealth. $224 billion, but not enough nickels and dimes in his couch cushions to sustain one of the most important newspapers in the world. Jeff Bezos, you are now Jeff Zeros. All the zeros that you love that define your life.
Hey friends, I'm Sharon McMahon, host of The Preamble. Listen, I know you're dealing with a lot, and it's even harder to do it when the world around you feels chaotic. But I'm here to help. Each week, my expert guests and I slow things down to talk about the stories shaping our world, what's really happening behind the headlines, why it matters, how it all connects. And if you're ready for real understanding and maybe even a little bit of hope, follow and listen to The Preamble wherever you get your podcasts.
Do we still have the globe? Is there anybody in here? Don't we have a globe? A little brown globe? Oh. There's the globe. There's the globe. We are starting a new segment this week. It is time for Spin the Globe, America's newest learning tool. Each week, we will spin the globe. Okay? I will stop it from spinning with my index finger. And wherever that index finger lands, we will then tell you all you need to know about that part of the world, whether it is land or sea. Spin the globe. It's fun and it's educational. It's like a roulette wheel at an upper level college course all in one. Let's do it. All right, spin the globe. I have landed on, what is that? The Sea of Okhotsk. Are you familiar with that? Is anybody familiar with the Sea of Okhotsk? It is somewhere near Russia. Okay, not one of my stronger areas. The Sea of Okhotsk, big sea. Big sea, gets cold in the evening. Good weather in the spring, warms up the sea. If you eat food anywhere near the Sea of Okhotsk, it's pretty good. And it's also near the Kuril Islands. I'm not really familiar with the current government of the Kuril Islands. All right, that's all you need to know about the Sea of Okhotsk on Spin the Globe. We'll be back next week with another Spin the Globe, and you will find out lots of stuff about some part of the world, either land or sea. Woo-hoo! Kind of a weak start to the segment. They got one of the parts of the world that I'm not as familiar with, FYI. I mean, it could have been, I could have told you a lot of stuff about Canada, about Rwanda, about Cuba.
Maryland.
Maryland, of course, the Chesapeake Bay, but the Sea of, what? Cuba. All right. Time to answer this week's sports trivia question. Who was the only person to ever play in both the NBA and the NFL? Unfortunately, Asher Friedberg guessed Michael Jordan, who did play in the NBA and then had a cup of coffee in Major League Baseball, I guess.
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown's a decent answer in terms that he was an incredible football player, probably the best running back ever. He was one of the best lacrosse players in American history, so he was a multi-sport guy. But no. Who?
Payton? Walter Payton?
No, not Walter Payton, okay? Your guesses are getting worse. You were pretty good with Jim Brown. Walter Payton gets worse. Michael Jordan was the closest, I guess. In modern times, Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson both played in the NFL and in MLB. But again, the NFL and the NBA, this individual actually is better known as a coach. And you're still probably not going to know him. He was the first ever to guide teams from the Canadian Football League's into the Canadian Football League's Grey Cup and into the NFL Super Bowl. So he's gone to the title game in both the CFL and the NFL. He coached the Minnesota Vikings to 4 Super Bowls, losing each time. It's a little before most of our time, at least when he did what he did. We're talking about the late, great Bud Grant, he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He went to the Super Bowl. Can you believe going to the Super Bowl 4 times and losing every time? The only thing worse is going 4 straight times and losing every time. That happened to Marv Levy and the Buffalo Bills. Anyway, Bud Grant, drafted out of the University of Minnesota by both the NBA's Minneapolis Lakers. That's when the Lakers were in Minneapolis, not Los Angeles. That's why they're called the Lakers. They were originally in an area with a lot of lakes. Here they should have been called the Los Angeles LA River, which is not even a river. But anyway, he was drafted by the Lakers, and he was also drafted by the NFL's Philadelphia Eagles. First, he played 2 seasons with the Lakers, and he was part of their 1950 NBA title team. Then he played 2 seasons with the Eagles in 1951 and 52. How talented was this guy? The first year, he was a defensive end. Then the next year, he was the team's leading wide receiver. Wasn't happy with the pay situation there, so he left the Eagles to go play in the Canadian Football League. He became a legendary coach there with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and then here with the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, that's some great trivia. You ask that at any cocktail party, nobody's going to get it. If you can remember most of what I said, you'll look like the smartest guy in the room, even though you are not. We are now proud and a bit burdened to present our Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms. This is an impossible category. Among the runners-up, The Honeymooners, The Dick Van Dyke Show, MASH, Taxi, The Cosby Show, Cheers, Seinfeld, Roseanne, Arrested Development, and The Office. Okay, wherever you're sitting, you can think of 10 other shows off the top of your head that you think might be on the Mount Rushmore. There are so many shows to consider, only 4 slots available. Further, in the interest of full disclosure, and this is an embarrassing disclosure, I have never seen a single episode of The Simpsons or Curb Your Enthusiasm. Growing up, I watched every episode of The Flintstones and The Jetsons, but I still have not seen any of the 803 episodes of The Simpsons. If you want to eliminate me from your life right now, go ahead. I would understand. Also, before we get to the list, let me be clear about something else before we start. None of my Mount Rushmore selections are from the first quarter of this 21st century. All of them are from the last half of the 20th century. It is what it is. Don't shoot the messenger. Anyway, let's go to it. My Mount Rushmore of sitcoms. I Love Lucy. I grew up with the Ricardos and the Mertzes in reruns. They were funnier than anything in my family. Lucille Ball was a comic genius, and Desi Arnaz was some other type of genius, and it was magic. They were hilarious, whether the show was set in New York, or then they set it in Hollywood for part of a year, or in Europe, or even Connecticut. They made Connecticut seem funny in the 1950s. If you've never seen the episodes with Lucy stomping grapes in Italy, or Lucy on a chocolate assembly line, you have not lived. And by the way, this was a tough call for me. I Love Lucy or The Honeymooners from the 1950s. Jackie Gleason's Honeymooners was a meteor across the sky. 1 season, 39 fabulous episodes. I went with I Love Lucy on sustained excellence. It's just so much volume. They did 180 shows over 6 years. Next, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. This was Mary Tyler Moore's second residency in sitcom greatness, following her turn as Laura Petrie in The Dick Van Dyke Show a decade earlier. A single working woman on TV was a big deal in 1970. And how about this cast? You know, we've seen just numerous outstanding sitcom ensembles. None are closer to TV perfection than Mary, Lou, Ted, and Murray, with Rhoda and Phyllis riding shotgun the first few seasons, then Sue Ann and Georgette the final few seasons. You know, like Seinfeld's, I can watch Mary Tyler Moore's on an endless loop and never get tired of the show. By the way, I used to consume an entire 8-ounce bag of Fritos while binging on Mary Tyler Moore. Now I might have to reconsider that routine. Next on the Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms, All in the Family. People love saying All in the Family could never be made nowadays. I don't even know how it got made then. I mean, how did the topics they dealt with, pass the muster with the CBS Suits back in 1971? In 2026, Archie Bunker and Michael Stivic never would even stay under the same roof with their polarized political views. Like I Love Lucy and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, All in the Family relies on a sterling quartet of characters: Archie, Edith, Meathead, and Gloria. All in the Family and Mary Tyler Moore's runs overlap during most of the 1970s, as well-written, well-produced, and well-cast as any sitcoms ever. All in the Family and Mary Tyler Moore remind me of a simple notion: smart should never have an expiration date. Thank you, James L. Brooks and Norman Lear, for these two seminal shows. Finally, on the Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms, The Larry Sanders Show. Larry Sanders overlaps with Seinfeld for almost the entirety of the 1990s. Seinfeld was more beloved. Larry Sanders was just a tad more brilliant, in my view. There's no denying the enduring excellence of Seinfeld's Jerry, Elaine, George, and Kramer. On the other hand, Larry Sanders was one short of the standard quartet sitcom ensemble, but Larry, Hank, and Artie didn't need a drummer. I love dark, and Larry Sanders shined the brightest light on the darkest recesses of Hollywood entertainment. We lost Gary Shandling too soon, but thankfully he lived long enough to create this epic. Larry Sanders on HBO did not have the broad audience of Seinfeld on NBC. If you missed it then, it deserves a look now. There you have it. Our Mount Rushmore of TV sitcoms: I Love Lucy, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, All in the Family, and The Larry Sanders Show. What, you disagree? I don't give a damn what you think.
Hi, this is Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst, certified financial planner, and the host of the Jill on Money podcast. With the new year upon us, there's no better time to take control of your financial life. And the Jill on Money podcast is here to help. It's your questions that make it possible for me to provide unconventional and, I hope, entertaining insights on your money and, more importantly, on your life. Follow and listen to Jill on Money wherever you get your podcasts.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to say this one time and one time only. If you are on an airline flight with me, do not speak to me unless I speak to you. Let me give you a quick example. If I sit down in my aisle seat wearing sunglasses and a headset, that should be a do not disturb sign, no? So don't start trying to chat it up with me. In addition, if I sit down and take out my laptop to do work, that should also indicate to any DeVry University graduate that I don't want to talk about where you're from or where you're going. And here's the thing about these flights. An airline flight is sort of like a cruise ship. You're surrounded by a lot of people you will never see again, nor have much of a desire to see again. Which reminds me, after a cross-country flight in which we don't say a word to one another, why would you start yakking it up with me after the plane lands and we're taxiing to the gate? Why do people do this on flights? 5 hours of silence, and then they want to say hello to you when you're about to say goodbye. No. No hello, no goodbye. And don't ask me to help you get your luggage out of the overhead bin. I've got a bad back. That will do it for this live streamed edition of Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad. Hope to see you again next time. And remember, if you're going to roll the dice, make sure they're loaded. Today's presenting sponsor of Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad is brought to you by 24K Wellness. Not all nutritional supplements are the same. 24K Wellness makes it their mission to help you feel, perform, and live at your best naturally and sustainably. 24K Wellness delivers nutritional supplements based on more than 5 decades of experience. Premium gold standard natural ingredients with advanced formulations and rigorous quality assurance testing to create products that support energy, recovery, vitality, long-term health, and cognition for focus through stress, late nights, and questionable decisions. No promises on your picks. And right now, special for Gambling Mad listeners only, go to 24kwellness.com and use the code MAD24K for the absolute lowest prices anywhere. Once again, that's 24kwellness.com and use the code MAD24K. 24K Wellness, fuel better, live better. Tell them Norm sent you. I turned on an NHL game the other day on TV. Okay, that's on me. My bad. But, I watch hockey maybe once every couple of years to keep in touch with the cold part of America. I mean, certainly nobody living in warm weather wants to be watching hockey, ice hockey year-round. And I'm not even exaggerating much. The Stanley Cup finals do not end until late June, which is summertime-like. So I'm watching this hockey thing and the first period ends and there's an 18-minute break, what most of us would call halftime in sports such as football or soccer or basketball. But then after the second period ends, there's another 18-minute break, another halftime. That's one halftime too many. What are we doing here? Particularly in this day and age when all of us have the attention span of a tsetse fly and all of us can wander off to any one of 150 other entertainment options, you're going to stop the action 2 different times for 18 minutes each and expect us to come back? Good luck with that, you puckheads. I can't even follow the game that well on TV. The puck still looks like a small bug crawling across my flat screen. So let me give the NHL a quick bit of free advice. Instead of 3 20-minute periods and 2 18-minute intermissions, get in line with everybody else in the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries and go with 2 30-minute halves and 1 18-minute intermission. I would say this again for emphasis, except repeating such an obvious notion would simply drive me gambling mad.
Gambling Mad with Norm and Chad is written by Norm and Chad and ghost-written by Norm and Chad. Executive producers are John Scheinberg and Rick Barrio-Dill. Produced by Norm and Chad and Rick Barrio-Dill. Our associate producers are Bree Coury and Asher Friedberg. And edited by Asher Friedberg with studio facilities at 360 Pod Studios, Beverly Hills.
I'm Dr. Mary Claire Haver, and my new podcast, Unpaused, is the place for bold, unfiltered conversations about what it takes for women to thrive in the second half of life. Listen to and follow Unpaused, available now wherever you get your podcasts.